Airbnb has a plan to win in China, Nintendo has a fix for Joy-Con desyncing, Elon Musk has harsh words for President Trump, and author Liza Mundy is here to talk with us about why Silicon Valley is so awful to women. All this and more in Tech News Today, right now.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1730, recorded Wednesday, March 22nd, 2017.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. When it comes to the big decision of choosing a mortgage lender, work with one that has your best interest in mind. Use Rocket Mortgage for a transparent, trustworthy home loan process that's completely online at quickenloans.com/TNT. Hello, welcome to Tech News Today. This is the show where we tell you everything you need to know about technology. I am Megan Maroney.
And I'm Nathan Olivares-Giles. Our guest today is author Liza Mundy, who recently wrote a piece for The Atlantic titled, "Why is Silicon Valley so awful to women?" But first, let's dig into the news. Airbnb says it has a plan to succeed where so many other big names in tech have failed: China. On Wednesday, Airbnb announced it was doubling its investment in China, and they will triple their workforce there. Airbnb's business in China will also have a new name. I think it's pronounced Airbnb. I think I probably butchered that. And in China, that translates to "welcome each other with love." Airbnb also says its goal is to double the number of listings it has in the country. At the end of 2016, it had 80,000 listings in China and about 450,000 worldwide. So this is quite an ambitious goal. Another hook it hopes will catch on is what's called experiences, which in the United States lets Airbnb users not only book a place to stay, but also gives them things to do curated by local experts tied to food, culture, and entertainment. So, Megan, do you think that Airbnb really has what it takes to succeed in China? Let's talk about who's failed there.
Well, everyone else.
Everyone else. Facebook, Google, Uber recently.
Yeah. I mean, Apple, like certain parts of Apple can't, you can't get.
Apple sells a lot of iPhones.
They do, but yeah.
They've not done much else, right?
Right. And as we were discussing, it's like if the Chinese government wants you to succeed, you'll succeed. If they don't, good luck to you. Go to India.
Yeah, it's pretty tough there. I do wonder, though, if this experience is this kind of tailor-made, curated, I guess, tourist-centered, thing will really catch on in China. Obviously, there's a ton of tourism that's happening in China these days, and it's arguably more open than it has been in quite a long time. But I haven't even given an experience a chance in the United States yet, so I can't really gauge on how successful it's been or not.
Yeah, I haven't heard much about the experiences, and I don't know anyone who's done them. They look cool, but yeah, I think that. Uber, of course, they were the one of the most surprising failures because Google and Facebook and Apple, like that was all content related. That was like wanting to control what was said, and that is something that you expect from China. Yes. But with Uber, that wasn't content related, but they were going against Didi Chuxing, which was the Chinese Uber, and they lost. Uber lost, and so there are Chinese Airbnbs. There's Zhaozhou. There's Tujia. I think I might be also not pronouncing that correctly. But they have 450,000 homes available.
Already.
Yeah, already.
That's how much Airbnb has worldwide. So they're kind of behind the ball here when it comes to the local market in China.
So that's where I think the experiences come in. They're really saying like, look, we've taken our time. We're not just, going into China and say like, hey, why don't you have the Silicon Valley taco experience? Yeah. That might be fun. They're really going in there and trying to, help people have authentic experiences. Obviously, like Airbnb, the hosts would be, hopefully Chinese, and so it is a little different. Everyone obviously wants to succeed in China because there are a lot of people there, and it's and in other places where there are a lot of people, there's not such a capitalist society. So I think, I don't know about my feelings about Airbnb as far as. The problems they have here are with the hotel industry. I don't know why they wouldn't have those same problems in China.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how they can build this business, especially being so far behind some of those Chinese competitors, which you would think the government would favor in some ways. But yeah, for me in the past, it's been good for everything from a couch to a weekend house in Tahoe. So I don't know, maybe the next time I try it, we'll be abroad.
You should probably test it for Twit, like for screensavers.
Yeah,
episode.
you think I can expense that Chinese trip?
Yes, I think you should. We'll talk to Leo about it. Yeah. The saga over Google's ad algorithm continues today. AT&T, Verizon, and Enterprise Rent-A-Car pulled their ads from Google and YouTube, even after Google apologized and said they were fixing their system to avoid ads appearing on extremist content. Now, these pulling of ads will amount to hundreds of millions of dollars in lost revenue for the company. This is serious for them. It's not good because they came out, they apologized. Yeah. I think Audi might have come and said, okay, thank you for your swift, movement on this. But I mean, my first thought was, Verizon and AT&T. Well, Verizon is, bought Yahoo or is in the process of buying Yahoo because they want their own ad network. So they're now a competitor to Google. So it really makes sense for them to saying like, you messed up, which they did. You put ads on this really extreme content. You put, you made our brand look bad and you were profiting from these horrible videos. But again, it's like, oh, well, this is also convenient for a company like Verizon or AT&T who would like to compete with Google.
No, those are really good points. And just to be fair, Google made some mistakes here, but I can't think of many other companies of equal size aside from Yahoo who have made as many mistakes as they have, largely around user data privacy and leaks and all sorts of things, and not necessarily being transparent about those things, which is part of why Verizon might end up buying Yahoo at a bit of a discount. So, but it just kind of feels like this story just won't die for Google. I know it's been a few days, and we've been mentioning it here every day for you, keeping you in the know, but I'm sure Google can't wait to get this behind them. But, this is no joke. Verizon and AT&T are the number 1 and number 2 largest telecom carriers in the country. They're powerhouses. So this is not an insignificant thing. I do wonder how long it will take for them to come back because despite the protests and despite the competition, Google is one of the largest ad sellers in the country, and especially when it comes to online. So you would think that at some point they would want to get their ads in front of those eyeballs again. I wonder how long this standoff might last.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think it's a big deal. Verizon's the 5th largest U.S. advertiser.
Wow.
And AT&T is the world's largest telecom. Enterprise is the world's largest rental car company. Like, I don't think, they're, as far as I know, not competing with Google, but yet. But so, yeah, I think it will be interesting. And I wonder where Facebook is probably excited about this because they're a huge ad network.
Good point.
And I think, I don't think that there's been a problem with extremist content on Facebook, but, because Facebook is less anonymous, it's, they've definitely had problems. They've had problems editing too much. I think Facebook taking too much down, like erring on the side of censorship and limiting free speech. So they haven't exactly had this problem, but they're probably happy about it. And
recently also their Facebook live streaming being used for violent acts.
That's true.
Has been in the news as well. So, but I think it'd be a bit harder to police what's live versus, uploaded content, which is the real question for YouTube here. So pretty fascinating developing. I wonder who's going to pull advertising tomorrow, or is this the last of it?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point, though. I'm sure they're watching closely. I'm sure Facebook is watching closely because live streaming, they're not doing that just because they, they want us all to be able to live stream because we think it's fun. They're doing it because they want more eyeballs and more advertising. So, it's probably only a matter of time before some advertising shows up next to, some sort of, something that a brand would not want their ads next to.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, Facebook announced today that they're going to let people start live streaming from laptops, not just smartphones. So advantageous with that announcement there. Mm-hmm. Well, Elon Musk criticized President Donald Trump for touting his signing of a NASA budget authorization bill as being about jobs. And indeed, authorization bills don't give NASA new funding or create new jobs. Funding comes from appropriations committees, as Ars Technica pointed out in its own coverage of Musk's critique today. What this bill did was tick off a final approval to keep things going on existing long-running NASA projects like the Space Launch System rocket and the Orion spacecraft. Musk said in a pair of tweets, "This bill changes almost nothing about what NASA is doing. Existing programs stay in place, and there is no added funding for Mars. Perhaps there will be some in the future, but this will not make a difference for Mars. This is not it. And it's an interesting criticism. In the past, Elon Musk has been criticized for serving on a tech advisory board that the president has going. But he's stayed on the board and said, hey, listen, you're going to want people like me who are willing to give it to him straight and to be able to criticize him fairly and also tell him what's good. So I'm not going to abandon that. And he's really stuck to his guns here. And I think to a certain extent, this speaks to that stance on being willing to both praise and criticize when appropriate. But at the same time, Elon Musk has gotten more than $3 billion in contracts. I should say SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, has gotten more than $3 billion from NASA contracts in the past. So, of course, he's going to want to see new funding. And SpaceX really wants to get to Mars. So, of course, that will be a priority for him. So, there's some business interest behind this critique here as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I like the idea of business interests helping us get to Mars, helping us get to space. Like, I don't think that there's really inherently anything wrong with them taking up, the budget cuts that many presidents have made, getting us up there. If they have the money and they want to go to Mars, like, great. I don't have serious issues with that. But the funding that was cut was more than just that. It was the NASA education funding. It was $115 million for the fiscal year 2016. That's going to be completely eliminated for fiscal year 2018. And I'm not saying that like other presidents, like Obama cut funding for NASA, but he didn't stand in front of a bunch of NASA scientists and tweet, look at what I'm doing for you as he's like slicing the budget. So it is a little different. I mean, NASA education, they have amazing programs. They support minority university research and education programs, which helps minorities get experience with STEM, like so much stuff. And this, obviously the NASA cuts are not the only science cuts that are happening or the things that are being said questioning science. So, it's really frustrating to see this. And, I'm showing my political face too much, so I'll stop.
Well, no, you bring up good points here because George W. Bush, he cut billions from NASA's funding when he was president. Obama did the same. Trump is proposing some of those things as well. So it's a very fair critique. What really kind of makes this stand out a little bit, though, like you said, is this Trump not understanding what an authorization bill is? When he says that signing this is about jobs, but it's not actually creating any new jobs, does he not understand how it works? Or is he being disingenuous and lying? And of course, that's a question with a lot of actions that the president has made, unfortunately. But it's nonetheless, it's important, I think, for those around any politician to fairly criticize things that need to be criticized. Now, one of the things that Trump celebrated in signing this, he was asked actually about whether or not he wants to fund space exploration. And he said, yeah, I'd love to do that, but first we need to focus on fixing our highways. But then in his recent budget proposals, which of course have to go through Congress before they're real and things might get left off, he proposed a 13% cut to the Department of Transportation too. So there's lots of cuts all around, but it really seems like for years now, the government has been pushing, regardless of Democrats and Republicans and what president, has been pushing a lot of this space-oriented stuff to private companies. And I think that's definitely an area where Elon Musk is looking to capitalize.
Mm-hmm. Well, copying Snapchat is so last week. Today, Instagram is adding features stolen from Yelp, OpenTable, and other services like Angie's List. You'll now be able to look up reviews of different businesses and even book appointments or restaurant reservations from Instagram. Now, the fact that the photo sharing site can now offer businesses not just a like or a follow, but actual business, it's a big move for the company. They are, of course, owned by Facebook, and they have 1 million monthly advertisers, and that's 5 times what it was just a year ago, which is pretty amazing. They have around 8 million businesses have Instagram profiles. That's up 5 times in September. 600 million monthly active users, 400 million daily active users.
Yeah.
This is, I'm sure if you're a photographer, if you've been with Instagram since they, launched and they were this little scrappy startup, this might seem disappointing and sad to you. But I think the Instagram of today is very different than it was. And, I think this makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes sense too. Definitely one of the things that I follow the most on Instagram are brands I like, artists I like, and if you see some good food, whether it's in your timeline from someone you follow or maybe a friend at a restaurant, you kind of want to act on some of those things, especially if you're hungry. So this kind of makes sense to me. I do wonder, though, one of the areas that Instagram has been investing in and developing and building out is messaging. And that's where the Snapchat copying a reference comes in. I wonder, though, if someday we could see the sort of things in Facebook Messenger with the whole M Assistant make its way over here, because it would be really nice to automate some of this stuff, to just go into Messenger and say, hey, just saw this snap of this food, get me delivery, or get me the reservation to that restaurant, or something like this. That kind of artificial intelligence and automation. I wonder if that could be a next step, because it really does seem like Instagram is a little bit of experimentation for Facebook, which owns the app, but also that things that are really successful in Facebook are starting to make their way over into Instagram as well, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, what I would want, they've been touting these like buy buttons and the shopping buttons and stuff. Like, I would really like to be able to just, if I see a couch in someone's living room, just to be able to click that and say that, where did that couch come from, and where are 10 places I can get it cheaper than that, than whoever famous person's couch it is. So I know that Pinterest has talked a little bit about stuff like that too. So yeah, I think that this really makes sense for Instagram, because they've come a long way, because it used to be that, you couldn't even add a link. And, it was just like link in the bio, which was always so confusing and dumb. And it's like the, Twitter, like when you used to have to write RT instead of retweeting. So yeah, I think they've seen how people use it, how advertisers use it, and and changed in that way.
Makes a lot of sense. At the same time, it's a bit of a delicate balance, right? Because I don't necessarily want to feel like Instagram's trying to get me to buy everything. I don't want to feel like I'm being thrown ads all the time. But there is a natural extension here as well, on being able to take action on what you see. So it'll be interesting to see how they balance that out, because it can feel intrusive and a bit offensive if it goes too far sometimes.
That's true.
Well, Nintendo says it's found a fix for a problem with the Switch. A vocal group of Switch owners have been complaining for weeks online about their left Joy-Con controllers occasionally disconnecting from their consoles during gameplay. Well, on Wednesday, Nintendo finally said that what was happening was due to manufacturing variations, and that going forward, Switch consoles won't ship with this problem. Well, that's good to hear, but while Nintendo is admitting that there is a problem and that it's found a solution, it isn't recalling Joy-Con controllers from those who have already bought the system, since they say the issue is rather rare. Now, if you have a Joy-Con with the desyncing problem, Nintendo says to mail in your controller and they'll fix it for you for free of charge, and you should get it back in about a week. All that sounds pretty good, and it really does feel like Nintendo is listening here to these issues. But I wonder, do you think that this is a good enough response from Nintendo?
Well, I think the Joy-Con desync issue is one of those great ills of society that I can't really fully speak on, since it's not something that I have experienced. But yes, maybe they should recall them. I wonder, all these journalists who've sent them back, and they say you get them back in a week, and Nintendo's saying that, but like now everyone is reading it's like, I'm going to send it back. Like, will it still be a week? That's what I wonder.
Good, good question.
And it is good that it was a manufacturing variance, they said, so it's not going to happen anymore. Like, you can go buy a Switch now, and it also is one of those things where it's like early adopters like yourself. Are you maybe a little more forgiving than someone who might have just said, oh, look, this really looks like something that I want. I'm going to buy it, 2 months after it comes out. And then those people will be fine.
Definitely. I have maybe about 8 friends who bought a Switch. I bought one as well. And I haven't seen this problem in my friends group or thankfully myself. But there are other problems that I really hope Nintendo addresses in the same way, in admitting and finding a solution, and then doing something going forward and offering a fix for. One of which is the plastic dock that you slide the console into. And the console's really a small tablet with these Joy-Con controllers attached on the side. That dock can scratch the screen, and for some folks. Now, I haven't had big scratches myself, some little hairline scratches on the side. It's pretty annoying, so I'm hoping that they address that next. But this definitely validates that age-old advice that we throw out there and that I don't always follow, which is don't ever buy the first generation of any technology. Whether it's that latest new redesign of a MacBook or it's the first few months of a gaming console, there will be problems and they will get ironed out over time. But it's hard to say no to Nintendo for me so far. And I'm glad that it hasn't burned me yet on the Switch. So we'll see where that goes.
You have good Nintendo karma, I guess.
So far.
After the break, we are all biased. Find out why saying this over and over again might be a cure to one of the biggest problems in Silicon Valley. But first, let's take a minute to thank Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans, the sponsor of this episode. Now, if you're watching this show, you are probably very comfortable doing just about anything online, including all the boring stuff, the filling out forms, getting a mortgage. You also know that if you are filling out all those forms and sending all of your personal information, what you make, your address, your social security number, you're going to want to trust where you are sending that information. You want to know who's on the other side of that. And when it comes to the big decision of choosing a mortgage lender, it's important to work with someone who you can trust, who you know has your best interest in mind. So if you've ever gotten a mortgage, driving all over town is the last thing you want to do. You want to apply for that mortgage on your couch, in your pajamas, while eating a pizza. That's what I would like to do. With Rocket Mortgage, you'll get a transparent online process that gives you the confidence to make an informed decision. So don't waste time searching through stacks of paperwork. With Rocket Mortgage, you can securely share your financial information to get a mortgage approval in minutes. You can even adjust the rate and the length of your loan in real time to make sure you get the mortgage solution that's right for you. So whether you're looking to buy a home or refinance your existing mortgage, you can lift that burden of getting a home loan with Rocket Mortgage. So you can skip the bank, skip all the waiting, go completely online at quickenloans.com/TNT. That's quickenloans.com/TNT. Add the TNT for Tech News Today. At the end, let them know we sent you there. Quicken Loans is an equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030. And we thank Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans for their support. Silicon Valley has historically not been the most welcoming of places for women. That is not news, but today's guest wrote the cover story for the April issue of The Atlantic and aimed to find out why. Liza Mundy is a writer for The Atlantic and Politico, author of the forthcoming book Code Girls. Welcome to the show, Liza.
Thanks so much for having me.
So your cover piece, Why is Silicon Valley So Awful to Women, is an amazing long-form think piece about a topic that we've been over and over on this show more than I think many of our viewers would like. But I really believe that your piece is different. It goes deep into why not much has changed, even though so many of us agree that it should. Now, one of the arguments I hear often when we talk about this topic is there aren't more women in tech because, not because of how we're treated, but because most women they don't like tech that much. It's just not their thing. Now, you interviewed dozens of women for your article. How do most of them feel about the tech parts of their tech jobs?
Women love tech. It's true that they leave the tech industry at twice the rate that men do, but generally when they do that, they go into tech-related jobs in other industries so that they continue to use their tech skills. I mean, tech is a great field. There aren't that many fields where you can do really interesting problem-solving work, likely make a six-figure salary, and often not even need a graduate degree. That's really unusual. So the women love the work who I interviewed.
And so, no, you've written many books, some about technology fields, most of them not. Is this something that is the way that women are treated in technology, or the rate at which women leave tech jobs? Is that markedly different than other fields, or is it pretty similar?
Well, I don't know if this is a direct answer to your question, but one of the things that intrigued me about tech, I've written about other fields where women are still in a distinct minority. One of them is the U.S. Senate. So when you look at the Senate, you can look at hundreds of years at this point, more than 100 years, of exclusion of women, a period of time when women couldn't vote, when they couldn't get their party's endorsement. So all sorts of historical reasons in something like politics why you don't see more women. If you look at fields like law and medicine, these are fields where, again, for hundreds of years, women were excluded from graduate schools. They were excluded from professional societies, associations, various forms of accreditation. So in some fields, there's a long history of exclusion that, still makes it hard for women to break through. Tech was always intriguing to me because it's a young field. It's a new field. It doesn't have a century-old history of excluding women. It's a progressive right-thinking, future-oriented, problem-solving field. And so what is so puzzling is why would a field like this be really as difficult as the U.S. Senate is for women to break into?
I wonder, did you have any insight in reporting out this story at maybe a bit of intersectionality here? Obviously, tech and Silicon Valley have a young history of being awful to women, also people of color. But it seems like there's this national dialogue that's happening these days with Oscars so white and why tech is not great with different minority groups. And you know, in journalism, we talk about diversity issues all the time as well. So I wonder, you know, looking at the intersections and the problems in all these different fields, does it feel like maybe this is a time where genuine change could happen because of this dialogue? Maybe because people are willing to admit that some of these problems are really there?
Yeah, I mean, one can hope. I think the signs of hope are the fact that there's more transparency now. The big tech companies have started publishing their diversity figures. They're changing and improving incrementally. They are getting a little bit better, not fast, but a little bit better. So yeah, there's more conversation about it. There's more transparency. There are more advocacy groups. There's more sort of internal and external pushing. Organizations like Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Push organization, you know, were among the earlier groups trying to get tech companies to publish their numbers. There are also green shoots of change in some computer science programs at Stanford, at Harvey Mudd College, at Carnegie Mellon. The percentage of female undergraduate majors in computer science is getting closer to parity. So the sort of old pipeline excuse that that companies use, yeah, we would hire more women if they existed, but the pipeline just makes it hard. That argument, you know, for the big companies, that should never be true, because Google, Facebook, they're such desirable places to work. They should be able to get a disproportionate percentage of the pipeline anyway. But now that some major computer science programs are really producing significant numbers of female undergraduates, I think that's a sign for optimism, and it certainly shoots down the pipeline argument.
So another argument here is that, you know, a lot of jobs like, you know, lawyers and CEOs, it's about temporal flexibility, that, you know, you have to be in the chair, you have to be, you know, your client has to have access to you immediately. And women often don't choose those jobs because they make a different choice. So the people that you talked to for your article, were these like C-suite jobs in technology, or were you talking about all the kinds of jobs? Because when I think about Silicon Valley jobs, they're all about temporal flexibility. There's just so many ways that you could, you know, work after your kids go to bed, you know, take your kids go to school and then work. So did you talk to people mostly C-suite level jobs in this piece, or was it across the board?
I was across the board, and that's the other puzzling thing about Silicon Valley. I mean, it's all about work-life flex, balance, maternity leave, paternity leave. We'll freeze your eggs if you want. I mean, there's so much conversation around work-life balance, and I know it doesn't always feel that way to employees. I've heard that, you know, paternity leave is a great gift for working mothers, right? To encourage men to take time off when they have children and to be active partners. That's a big boon to women in the workplace. And I know that even though these companies offer it, people don't necessarily feel that they can take it. But even so, tech is more than almost any field I can think of. Tech makes a big deal about work-life balance. So the people that I talk to that feel, uncomfortable in their office settings or have had difficult interactions, it's never to do with work-life balance, ever. It's to do with how they're treated.
You also spoke with a number of entrepreneurs, women who are starting their own businesses to really kind of answer and solve a lot of these problems, including Bethany Blunt, the CEO of Kathy Labs, and Stephanie Lampkin, the founder and CEO of Blendor. How important is entrepreneurship into, finally cracking these seemingly insurmountable issues in Silicon Valley?
Well, it's important, although the thing that I was struck by is, and Bethany actually recounted one of the anecdotes in the piece, even when women are in positions of authority, their technical skills are challenged. She talked about conducting an interview when she was a senior tech person at an online gaming company and came in to do an interview with a applicant who was really disrespectful in the interview to her, disrespectful to a female vice president. And then they sent in kind of a young new male employee to do the interview just to give him some experience giving interviews. And the applicant treated him with much greater respect. So even when women are in positions of authority, it's surprising that they still find their expertise challenged. And similarly, I talked to women who themselves are now investors and investing in companies. And the sort of the needle they have to thread in terms of being friendly and being cordial and congenial with the boys' club of money and funding, but fending off relentless advances and, invitations if you're having dinner to come up and have a drink in the hotel room. Or she talked about, as an investor, being told by a startup founder, if you want to get in on this deal, you'll have to spend intimate time with me. So entrepreneurship obviously is incredibly important in this industry, but women entrepreneurs and even women funders, it's really striking to me, again, how they get treated and the sort of environment that they have to navigate. One thing that I think is maybe different about tech is a lot of the interactions in tech, a lot of the meaningful interactions take place in workplaces, not in workplaces, take place at conferences or in funding situations where you're making a pitch or you're socializing. And so, workplaces these days can be somewhat regulated. At least there might be a HR department that's paying attention. But a lot of these interactions are not even taking place in offices.
Yeah, I mean, just, last month, Susan J. Fowler, who wrote the piece on her blog post about her year at Uber, which was just really amazing. Like, as much as you thought Uber was an old boys club, like just to read the things that she went through and reporting sexual harassment and then, being told that this was the person's, first experience with this, and then talking to other women and finding out that, it happened so often. You mentioned in your piece a lot of things that people might not think about as issues. Talk a little bit about the open floor plan.
Right. So, and I will say Uber is a good example that even when people are in workplaces that have HR departments, that's not a recipe for success, and that HR departments can be a place where complaints go to die. So it really does have to come from corporate leadership and from the top. But open... There's this culture in Silicon Valley of what was called creative confrontation at Intel, and it was sort of invented after the war. The idea that a productive intellectual environment is one where there's lots of arguing and lots of conflict and lots of criticism of other people's ideas. And so I interviewed women who, again, love the work, love the tech that they do, are still in the industry, but worked in open office environments where one woman said there was this male employee who was constantly popping up behind her to find fault with her work and to look at her computer screen. And so she didn't even feel within the office that she had a place where she could go and feel safe. And I think particularly in offices where there's a lot of arguing and that's kind of the ethos. For anybody who feels like they're an outsider, like they're not part of the club, that's just even more difficult.
Mm-hmm. So last May, we interviewed Ellen Pao and Erica Joy, who started two of the founders of Project Include. You talked to some of them as well. Is what they're doing, they've been around for about a year, is what they're doing, how's it going for them?
I interviewed most of the members about their own personal experiences. I think that as opposed to, sort of granular detail about what Project Include is doing, although I think that what they're doing is really trying to find ways to get even more granular transparency and to work with companies that are really interested in digging down into their demographic figures and understanding why they lose women at certain points in the career path. And I think they're one of a number of organizations that are looking for ways to bring more data to bear on the problem. And also the fact that the women on the board were so willing to talk to me about their experiences is really, really important, because I did interview women who were still quite reluctant to talk about their experiences, which I totally respect. But I admire all the women with Project Include who were willing to just go ahead and talk about it.
I wondered, did anyone speak to some of the problems that do exist in tech with the way men behave? I mean, obviously what we want is parity and for women to be treated equal, but there are some things that are accepted norms for men in Silicon Valley that might not be acceptable in other places. Quite frankly, there's a lot of CEOs who behave badly and are sometimes celebrated for being aggressive and for being jerks. I don't know if this is something that these women are looking to fix, or if this is something that they aspire to have the freedom to do as well.
Fix. I'd say fix. I didn't talk to any women who wanted to be able to behave like sort of, the most egregious examples of kind of fratty behavior. I didn't find any women wishing that they could emulate that.
Was there anything, well, just got to know, was there anything that came about in your reporting that didn't make it into the article that you wish, would have been able to get in there?
Well, as you said, it was a long form narrative, so there's a fair amount in there. I think, that's a good question. I could endlessly report this topic, but I felt as though we were able to pretty thoroughly cover it, actually.
So tell us about your book that's coming out, Code Girls.
Oh, yeah, thanks for asking. I'm just putting the finishing touches on the manuscript. It's been a fascinating story, and I think it's important in this realm. During World War II, after Pearl Harbor, which came as a great shock to the country, and we realized that we needed to improve our intelligence gathering by breaking codes that enemy governments and diplomats were using around the world. The men were all shipped to sea, so actually a little more than 10,000 women came to Washington for the Navy and the Army and broke the codes all during the war. There's been a lot of attention given to Bletchley Park in England, but the American code breaking operation was actually bigger than England's and shortened the war probably by 2 years. And it was majority female. I mean, more than half of the code breakers were women, and they. Some of them are still alive. They're in their 90s, and they've never talked about it. They took their vow of secrecy very, very seriously. They understand it's okay to talk about it now. And I think they are an important example, actually, for women in STEM and women in tech. A lot of this had to do with math. An important example of how women actually have been contributing in these fields all along. They just haven't gotten the attention, really, that they deserved. It's been a fun story to report.
And of course, it's so important to have mentors, to see, to read those in your history books as you're growing up, and just to see what's possible. Thank you so much for joining us, Liza. Liza Mundy is a New York Times bestselling author, a fellow at New America. She is at Liza Mundy on Twitter and can also be found at lizamundy.com. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Good night.
Awesome. So should we go into feedback now? Or are we going to start from the top like yesterday?
No, I think we can do the kicker and... Oh, wait. Did I put the feedback in there? Yeah, but the feedback's not... It didn't copy over.
Oh, yeah, it's there. Oh, no. Okay.
Oh, it didn't copy over.
I guess I could just read it from my laptop.
Sure. Yeah, or we... Yeah.
Yeah.
You can...
Okay. Cool.
Nate, it's feedback time.
I'll just start with that. That's really good. All right, it's feedback time from the audience, the viewers like you. Steve wrote in to say, in reporting yesterday's story about the laptop ban, I think you completely missed the real tech angle and the probable reason for the ban. If they're letting you check the devices in your luggage, they're not concerned with bombs. Having a device in your bag lets them take their time to extract all your data from your computer and add it to their vast privacy erasing databases. And Steve, thank you so much for that feedback here. For those who don't know, the electronics ban that we're talking about was introduced by the United States and the United Kingdom yesterday and affects a collection of flights to the U.S. and the U.K. from 10 Muslim-majority countries. And with that in place, you're not allowed to use anything bigger than a smartphone in the cabin of a plane. You have to put all that stuff in baggage that will be checked. So not even the overhead bin. So that's what we're talking about here. And this is a pretty fascinating theory from Steve. I don't want to go so far as to call it a conspiracy theory, but it does tap into, I think, some fair skepticism and maybe paranoia here. What do you think?
Well, I mean, we talked about yesterday, that it seemed random because you could put this, you could check it in your baggage. And so, I guess that is possible that they are kind of going, doing an end run around checking our information. And while I definitely think the government can break into passwords and, have access. I don't know that they would take the time to do that.
To shuffle through our luggage and the undercarriage during a flight?
Right.
Maybe not. Nonetheless, we have actually seen a lot of reports of whether it's like Homeland Security officers or different border agents confiscating people's phones, asking for their passwords, forcing people to use their fingerprint sensors and things like that. And later on this week, we'll actually have Brian Chen from the New York Times to talk about what you can do to secure your data on your devices as you're crossing borders, taking international flights and things like this. So hopefully that'll provide a little bit more insight. But regardless, Steve, thanks for this feedback. And we look forward to having more of it from all of you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, next we go to Raekwon from the legendary Wu-Tang Clan. This rapper wants you to feel his latest album literally. Raekwon's new record will be compatible with a vibrating backpack that will respond to the music somewhat like a subwoofer. However, it's only going to be free for 15 lucky fans who buy the record. Now, this backpack comes from a startup called Subpack. It's not yet clear how Raekwon and Subpack will decide which 15 fans who buy the album will actually get the backpacks. But Subpack on its website says that those who do get one will, quote, feel the boom of the drums pulse through them. Different notes and bass lines hit different areas of the body, feeling a fully immersive, high-fidelity music experience as if they are right in the studio, end quote. This really caught my eye here. I've been a long-time Wu-Tang Clan fan. I haven't tried one of these vibrating backpacks. I've only ever really seen them in a virtual reality context, but what do you think? Is this a gimmick or is this like a full, genuine embrace of some interesting technology?
Well, I think that your reporting on the intersection of hip hop and technology is just amazing. And like I said, I'm impressed that
it's not going to happen every episode. But.
Well, it could, maybe. I like the idea of a vibrating wearable backpack. I might listen to my Taylor Swift with it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I think gimmick, yes. I think this is a gimmick, but I like it. And I know about Wu-Tang Clan. So. Yeah,
well, there's been an interesting trend that I've really enjoyed that's been happening with physical releases of music outside of hip hop, but also within hip hop. One of my favorite rap groups called Run the Jewels with their newest album, RTJ3, on cassette or vinyl or CD. If you buy it, there's an app you can download called Art the Jewels, and then it does like a little augmented reality trick. You can see like music videos and stuff. But, we've been getting special posters and books and special cover art and albums and physical releases for a long time. I'd like to see more of an embrace from tech, but this backpack, if you buy it by itself, is $300. So it's not cheap. So theoretically, if you're not one of those 15 lucky fans, and however they're going to determine those folks, you could go buy this $300 backpack and listen to the album and get it still working. And there are other tracks that Subpack lists on its website that will work with this backpack too. But I feel like it's something I got to try before I can really judge it. I know there's a little device called a baselet that will vibrate on your wrist.
Oh, baselet.
Yeah. But when I think of like listening to music and really feeling it, I don't think of like my back or my wrist shaking. So I got to try some of this stuff out. I'm intrigued, but it definitely feels like a gimmick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I would like a shirt, maybe like a shirt. Vibrating shirt.
Oh, wow. Just the whole thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You should talk to Raekwon.
Okay, I will. Yeah, I will.
Maybe on that next album. That'll be where things go. Awesome. Well, TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 2300 UTC at twit.tv/live. You can be a part of the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv or leaving us a short voicemail. We do love voicemails at 260-TNT-SHOW. You can also hit us up on Twitter at TechNewsTodayTV.
And you can find all the ways to subscribe to our show at twit.tv/TNT. If you haven't subscribed already, do it. Do it now. Subscribe to your friends and families, strangers that you're sitting next to on the subway. Just take that phone out of there I mean, what,
Yeah, tell your friends.
It's important. And if you want to see us, come see us in person. Email tickets at twit.tv. And if you want to tweet at me, if you get arrested on the subway, I am Megan Maroney, and I will bail you out.
Oh, wow. I'm gonna keep you on speed dial.
Okay.
And I'm on Twitter at NateOG. Thanks to our technical director, Brian, Burke for helping out in the studio, Kevin for editing the show, and thanks for you for talking tech with us today. We'll see you tomorrow. All right.